The winter of 1941 was unforgiving. As German forces pushed deeper into Soviet territory, the city of Odessa stood as one of the last bastions of resistance along the Black Sea coast. In the chaos of war, among the countless soldiers fighting for their homeland, one young woman would become a legend. Her name was Lyudmila Mikhailovna Pavlichenko, and she would become the most feared sniper the German Wehrmacht had ever faced. But before the world knew her as Lady Death, she was simply Mila, a 25-year-old history student at Kiev University. She had grown up shooting rifles in the Osovayakim, a Soviet shooting club, where she had honed her marksmanship alongside boys who never believed a girl could outshoot them. She proved them wrong every single time. When the Germans invaded on June 22, 1941, Mila didn't hesitate. She abandoned her textbooks and joined the Red Army's 25th Rifle Division as a sniper. The recruitment officer looked at her with skepticism that bordered on mockery. A woman? A sniper? He handed her a rifle, expecting her to fail the qualification test. Within moments, she placed 5 rounds through the center of a distant target. The smirk vanished from his face. Lyudmila Pavlichenko had just begun her war. Her first 2 kills came outside Odessa in August 1941. She had been deployed to the front lines where Soviet forces were desperately trying to hold back the German advance. Positioned in a bombed-out apartment building, she watched through her scope as 2 German officers consulted a map near their forward position. Her hands were steady, her breathing controlled. 2 shots, 2 kills, no hesitation. When she returned to her unit, she didn't speak of it. She didn't need to. The war had claimed her innocence in those 2 trigger pulls, but it had also revealed her purpose. The siege of Odessa lasted 73 days. 73 days of constant bombardment, close-quarters combat, and desperate defense. For Lyudmila, it meant 73 days of hunting. She developed a method, a trick that would define her entire career and account for hundreds of her kills. While other snipers would take their shots and immediately relocate, fearing counter-sniper fire, Lyudmila did something different, something that seemed insane to her fellow soldiers. She stayed. After making a kill, she would remain absolutely motionless in her hide for hours, sometimes even days. She understood something fundamental about human psychology that her enemies didn't anticipate. When a soldier fell to sniper fire, the Germans would send out search parties. They would scan the obvious positions, windows, rooftops, tree lines. They expected the sniper to be gone, moved to a new location, but Lyudmila was still there, watching, waiting. And when those search parties came looking for a ghost, they exposed themselves. They became her next targets. One particular incident during the Odessa defense exemplified her deadly patience. She had taken position in the rubble of a destroyed factory, concealed among twisted metal and broken concrete. At dawn, she eliminated a German machine gunner who had been terrorizing Soviet supply lines. The shot was clean, over 400 meters. She watched as the man crumpled over his weapon. Then came the reaction she anticipated. Within minutes, a squad of 6 German soldiers moved cautiously toward the machine gun nest, trying to recover their fallen comrade and locate the shooter. They searched the obvious positions: the buildings to the north, the water tower to the east. They never imagined the sniper would still be in the same location, watching them through her scope. Over the next 4 hours, Lyudmila methodically eliminated 5 of those 6 men. The last one fled, likely reporting that multiple snipers had them surrounded, but it was just her. Just one woman with a rifle and the patience of a predator. Her superiors began to notice. By the time Odessa was evacuated in October 1941, she had recorded 187 confirmed kills. 187 German soldiers who would never return home, all eliminated by a woman many of them didn't believe should even be on the battlefield. But the war was far from over. Lyudmila was redeployed to Sevastopol, another crucial port city under siege. If Odessa had been hell, Sevastopol was the deepest circle of it. The Germans were determined to take the city, throwing everything they had at the Soviet defenders. Artillery bombardments that turned day into night with smoke and debris. Aerial attacks that left the earth cratered and lifeless. And in the midst of this apocalyptic landscape, snipers on both sides engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse. It was in Sevastopol that Ludmila faced her greatest challenge. The Germans had brought in their own elite marksmen, skilled snipers tasked with one objective: eliminate the Soviet snipers who were decimating their officer corps. For 3 days in December 1941, Ludmila engaged in a duel with a German sniper who had already killed several of her comrades. He was good, very good. He knew the tricks, the deceptions, the psychology. On the first day, he nearly got her. A bullet passed so close to her head that she felt the heat of it against her cheek. On the second day, she thought she had him when she saw movement in a bombed-out church bell tower. She fired, missed. It had been a decoy, a helmet on a stick. The German was somewhere else, watching, learning her patterns. On the third day, Ludmila changed her approach. She remembered her trick, the one that had served her so well. She deliberately took a shot at a German position, a shot she knew would miss. Then she did something that made her spotter think she had lost her mind. She stood up, just for a fraction of a second, in full view, before dropping back down and rolling to a different position 3 meters away. To the German sniper watching through his scope, it would have looked like a mistake, a moment of carelessness. He took the bait. She saw the muzzle flash from a destroyed building she had previously dismissed as too obvious a position. That was his trick, hiding in plain sight just as she did. She calculated the angle, adjusted for wind and distance, and fired. Through her scope, she saw him fall backward. The duel was over. She had won. But there was no celebration. Just relief, exhaustion, and the knowledge that tomorrow would bring another threat. The fighting in Sevastopol intensified throughout the winter and into the spring of 1942. Ludmila continued her work with ruthless efficiency. Her trick of remaining in position after a kill became legendary among both Soviet and German forces. The Germans started calling her Lady Death when they realized that one woman was responsible for dozens of their casualties. They put a bounty on her head. They sent hunter-killer teams specifically to find her. She evaded them all. By May 1942, after 11 months of combat, Ludmila Pavlichenko's confirmed kill count had reached 309. 309 men who had families, who had dreams, who had been sent to conquer a land that fought back with fury. Among those kills were 36 enemy snipers, each one a trained marksman who had made the fatal mistake of underestimating the woman in their crosshairs. Then, on June 10, 1942, her war nearly ended. A mortar shell exploded near her position, peppering her with shrapnel. She was evacuated from Sevastopol by submarine, one of the last to leave before the city finally fell to the Germans. Her fighting days were over, but her impact on the war was just beginning. The Soviet leadership recognized the propaganda value of their most successful sniper. Ludmila was sent on a tour of Allied nations, including the United States and the United Kingdom, to rally support for the Soviet war effort. In America, she met Eleanor Roosevelt and became the first Soviet citizen to be received at the White House. She gave speeches, attended rallies, and everywhere she went, she carried herself with the dignity and poise of someone who had seen the worst of humanity and survived. In one famous speech in Chicago, she addressed the crowd with words that silenced the room. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice steady and clear despite speaking through an interpreter, "I am 25 years old, and I have killed 309 fascist invaders by now. Don't you think, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long?" It was a challenge, a call to action, and a reminder that while Americans debated their involvement in the European theater, Soviet women were already in the trenches, bleeding and dying. After the war, Ludmila returned to finish her education, earning a master's degree in history. She trained other snipers, passing on the skills and tricks that had kept her alive and made her lethal. The trick of patience, of understanding that sometimes the deadliest thing a hunter can do is remain still, watch, and wait for the prey to come to them. It wasn't just a tactical decision. It was a psychological weapon that exploited the enemy's assumptions about where a sniper would be and what a woman was capable of. She rarely spoke of the war in her later years. The nightmares never fully left her. The faces of the men she had killed haunted her sleep, even though she knew every shot had been justified, every kill a defense of her homeland. She died in 1974 at the age of 58. Honored as a hero of the Soviet Union, her legacy cemented in history. But beyond the medals and the accolades, beyond the statistics and the military records, Lyudmila Pavlichenko's story is one of extraordinary courage and innovation in the face of overwhelming adversity. In an era when women were told their place was away from the front lines, she walked into hell with a rifle and reminded the world that valor has no gender. Her crazy trick of staying in position after a kill, of using patience as a weapon, became a tactic studied in sniper schools around the world. 309 confirmed kills in 11 months. Each one a story of precision, patience, and purpose. Each one a testament to a young woman who refused to be underestimated, who turned her enemies' assumptions into their downfall, and who proved that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one you never expected to face. This is the story of Lyudmila Pavlichenko, history student, Soviet sniper legend, Lady Death.